call came a week before the event. It was a voice I had heard before. D's, smooth as always, authoritative but persuasive. "Hey, I need you to come to Las Vegas. It's M's birthday. I have big plans," he said. There was something in his tone that sent a shiver down my spine, even though I couldn't quite figure out what it was. It wasn't the kind of invitation you say no to. D had a reputation, charm, power, and darkness. He didn't invite you just to show up. He invited you because he had something in mind. Always. But that night was different. There was something off before it even began. Maybe it was the secret surrounding it. The fact that M's real birthday had passed days before. Yet the party was scheduled for 3 days later, almost as an afterthought. Maybe it was just too much of everything. The villa in Las Vegas, the exclusive guest list, and, oh, don't get me started on the arrangements. Everything felt too rehearsed. At the time, I didn't know it, but I was already stepping into something much darker than a party. The Parisian Palace in Las Vegas wasn't just a villa. It was a statement. From the outside, it looked like a dream place. Big, elegant, with bright lights and marble columns. But the closer I got, the more I felt like a character in a twisted horror movie. As I walked through the huge front doors, the smell of money and perfume mixed in the air. D's usual crew was scattered around, mingling with some of the more familiar faces in show business. But it wasn't the celebrities that caught my attention. It was them, D's special guests. F, M, L, D, K, B, and a number of women who seemed more like shadows than people. Something wasn't right. D moved through the crowd as if he owned every inch of the place, and maybe he did. The music was loud, laughter was everywhere, but beneath it all, there was a strange, palpable sense of tension. People laughed, danced, but it all seemed forced. No one seemed at ease. And then there was the centerpiece. A naked woman covered only by a thin sheet of transparent vinyl, serving sushi to the party guests. Sushi. I've seen a lot of things in my life, but nothing had prepared me for this. D didn't seem to notice my discomfort. He was in his element, authoritative, controlling. It wasn't about fun, it was about power. And I was starting to understand that this wasn't just a party, it was a game. His game. Before the celebrations even started, D was already making preparations. Strange preparations. New locks for every room. No one gets a key but me. These were D's words when he gave instructions to the staff. My mind was confused. What kind of party needs locked rooms? And not just any locks, but ones that were resistant. I'd seen people take their privacy seriously, but this felt planned. It wasn't just the locks that bothered me. D had brought in his team and installed smoke detectors. His smoke detectors. They weren't the kind you'd find in a typical house. No, they were high-tech, hidden, like something out of a spy movie. It seemed like they were monitoring something beyond just air quality, and then, when the party was over, they vanished. Just puff. Gone. I started asking around. People whispered about the rooms. The freak-off, they called it. A private affair that no one really talked about. But I was there, and I could feel the undercurrent. It wasn't about celebrating, it was about control, manipulation, and something much, much darker. The night was passing, and I could feel it in my bones. Laughter had turned hollow. The music louder, almost deafening. The people around me began to look like they were in a trance, lost in something they couldn't control. M, poor M. He was always near D, always smiling, always the perfect guest. But tonight he wasn't smiling anymore. I saw him walk into one of those locked rooms. His eyes were wide open, almost panicked. I tried to follow him, but D's bodyguards made sure I couldn't. It was around 3 a.m. when the party started to wind down. Laughter turned to screams, then to silence. M came out of that room, broken. Not physically, but in ways that made my blood run cold. He looked different, and that's when I realized it. Something had happened. Something that shouldn't have happened. When the party ended, the Parisian palace looked like a crime scene. Broken glass, blood-stained sheets, used condoms. At first, I thought it was a joke, but when I saw it, when I walked through those halls, it hit me. This wasn't just a wild night, it was something else. J.H., the property manager, had to clean up the mess. He told me he found razor blades on the floor, lubricant, powder. It was like a distorted version of a horror movie, and I was part of it. But that wasn't the worst part. I saw things in the bushes, panties, bras, 2 abandoned iPhones. I wish I could have unseen them, but I couldn't. And then there were the whispers, the rumors that M wasn't just a guest, that he was more than that he was controlled, used. I didn't want to believe it, but the signs were all there. And then came the audio. I'll never forget it, the sound of M's voice. At first, I didn't recognize it. It was confused, distorted. But the things he was saying, the way he sounded, were unmistakable. A bodyguard, who had recorded everything that night, leaked it. It was clear that M had been drinking or had taken something that had put him in an altered state. M was out of his mind, drunk, stunned. But he wasn't just under the influence of substances. He was trapped. The audio didn't lie. The way D controlled the situation, the way he used M for his personal pleasure, it was all there. I could hear the fear in M's voice. I could hear that he had surrendered. This wasn't a party. It was a dark ritual. A twisted game D had been playing for years, and M was just the latest pawn. But the investigation didn't stop there. Now the feds were involved. The investigation was heating up, and the leaked footage, along with the audio, was just the beginning. M's relationship with D was under scrutiny, and there was a growing sense that the situation was much more complicated than anyone had imagined. And then came the lawsuits, the resurfacing accusations about D's past, the ones no one wanted to talk about. A pattern emerged. D didn't just control the music world, he controlled everything. He owned people. And it wasn't just about the parties, it was about using those parties to manipulate, blackmail, and break people until they couldn't see a way out anymore. When the investigation concluded, D was in federal custody. The tapes, the evidence, everything was piling up. But for M, it wasn't the end. It was just another chapter in his story. But I could see it in his eyes. He was a survivor, but the scars from that night would stay with him forever. And now, well, now the world was watching. The internet was full of gossip, rumors, and fear. The question everyone was asking was, what really happened that night? And the answer, it's darker than you can imagine. The investigation was picking up speed as the media chaos grew, with rumors, testimonies, and theories shining a light on D's dark side. His dealings, alliances, and hidden power were being questioned, but one question remained unanswered. What was happening behind those closed doors? M, in the meantime, tried to return to his life, but the shadow of that night haunted him. The scars weren't just physical, but there was a deep weariness, as if his freedom had been taken away. The rumors about other guests going through the same experience started circulating. Meanwhile, D was preparing something. Behind the scenes, he was gathering evidence to defend himself, manipulating the system itself. Every mistake made by those accusing him would be used against them. But the question that tormented me was, who was really investigating who? The investigation was getting complicated. Law enforcement, initially confident they had everything under control, now felt confused and uncertain about what to do. D had infiltrated every corner of the system, from politics to business, from crime to showbiz. Every move against him revealed another layer of his network. M, meanwhile, found no peace. Despite appearing normal, he was still haunted by the audio from that night and the realization that his life would never be the same. His testimony could change everything, but he wasn't sure it was the right choice. Who would believe another cog in a dark and perfect system? D seemed more confident than ever. His network was expanding, but the shadows of the past were catching up with him. His career seemed in danger due to his actions, but in the meantime, he was already planning his next move behind the scenes. His power wouldn't be easy to destroy. The game wasn't about who won, but who would remain standing when everything came crashing down.